and you tell them, I myself, I have a struggle sometimes with some of the values that we've agreed to. Let me tell you an experience I had. And it makes it legitimate. Then they open up and tell an experience. If you set yourself up as a paragon of perfection, they know it's not the case because they see hypocrisies from time to time. And then they think, you know, there's this kind of double standard works in life. In other words, I see my parents saying things on the phone, or they're interacting with people in politically correct ways, even though they don't use those words necessarily, but they don't really mean it. They see insincerity. I just think it's a mistake. One time I was running out of the house, and I knew that if I had to say goodbye to my little ones, the teeniest, I'd have to spend a half an hour with them, and I was in such a rush, so I said to the girls as I ran out, "Don't tell Joshua I'm going." You know, and then I got out into the car and I realized, what did I just do? I just modeled to my daughters.
Speaking out.
Yeah. And so I had to go back in and said that was wrong on me to do that. I'm sorry, I'm going to go and say goodbye to Joshua.
Parenting is such a challenge, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I think that really it's the greatest growth process there is in life, and none of us have been really trained for it except through the way that we were modeled in our own upbringing, and often that was inconsistent and sometimes very negative. So to really take charge of your own life and to pause and to train yourself to pause between whatever happens to you and your response, and then to think about your values and to make a wiser decision, and when you make a mistake, to admit it, apologize, and move on.
It just occurred to me that we've been talking about the emotional bank account, assuming that everyone has already read the book. But let's talk about it. Tell us a little bit more about what this is.
About the emotional bank account?
Yes. There was, it's such a powerful metaphor. Paint a picture for us, would you please, as to what is an emotional bank account between two people, between a parent and a child? And give some examples of what are deposits and what are withdrawals.
Okay. I think always the first deposit into this emotional bank account is empathy. It's to understand what a deposit is to another person. Another key deposit is always keep your promises. And when you use the word, I promise, use it very wisely and very carefully. If you ever break it, they begin to question your basic integrity, whether they can really trust you or not. Another one is to always be loyal to those who are not present. So that, kind of like I did with that little boy when I ran out, I had to be loyal to him when he was not present. Because the people who are present will know you'll be loyal to them when they're not present, that your love is truly unconditional. The key to the many is how you treat the one who is not present. It's a very important principle. Otherwise, your hypocrisy will gradually surface, and it will train the children to do the same thing with their friends and with each other. Another tremendously important deposit is to treat people with kindness, to use words like please and thank you, words of respect, and to avoid the tendency to, get caustic and to label people or to stereotype them, because all that does is tend to congeal inside yourself a kind of an image of a person, and then you'll find yourself treating people according to that image, and they'll live up to it, and then you have what's called a codependent relationship, where your own perception of them kind of justifies their behavior and their perception back of you.
They're living up to negative expectations instead of positive expectations.
Right. Expectations is awfully important, too, that you manage them up front very clearly, so that, because you'll find it at the bottom of most problems are ambiguous or confused expectations where they feel they have been violated later on. That's why it's very important to say, now, as we go on this little outing that we're going to have together, let's get a clear understanding of what we're going to do, what we're not going to do, and what the rules are that we've agreed to, just so the expectations are very clear. Because most problems come from either ambiguous or violated expectations. So managing expectations is a huge deposit into the emotional.
So the idea is that in any relationship you have with another person, it's like there's an emotional bank account between the two of you. And when you say kind things and do kind things, and when you keep your word, you are it's a deposit into that person's bank account. And if you show up late, or you forget an appointment, or you don't keep your word, or you yell out in anger, then it's a withdrawal. I noticed from my daughter, she said, every time I talk to Dad, all he's doing is talking about cleaning or criticizing me about cleaning. Mm-hmm. And we realized, I said, honey, you've bankrupted your account with her. I better handle the cleaning issues from now on, and now you're just going to have to build that back up.
Right.
By saying some nice things, catching her when she has done the cleaning, complimenting her on having her bed made and all of that, because they need to kind of repair the relationship and build that back up again.
Right, and also apologizing for the mistakes of the past.
I want to talk to you, too, you talk about the importance of putting first things first. What are these first things? What do you mean?
Well, the first things are the things you come up with in your mission statement of work and the goals that flow from them. Those are the first things. Most people literally do not put first things first. They'll put second things first. They'll focus on their work when they say we really value family most. And they'll focus upon, they'll neglect their health often. They'll neglect their integrity. Now those are first things. They'll neglect their deepest values, all in the name of social pressure. And that's why the ability to say no to the second things is the key to saying yes to the first things. You have to have a burning sense of yes about the first things. That's why there must be emotional engagement over time in developing the value system of the family. Because those become first things. But you know what happens? They get such social courage when they live that way. So it's not hard to say no. You can say no pleasantly and cheerfully and smilingly. But most people, when they haven't decided what the first things are, they cannot say no to social expectations and so forth because they just feel like, I'm going to risk my relationship with them. And so if they do say no, they're guilt-tripped and they feel bad about it, and it just kind of demeans them.
So, for example, health is one of your top values, so you schedule time to exercise.
Right, and to exercise with the family.
With your children, so you schedule and you follow through and you take special dates with each of your children, and you schedule and you take time for family time.
Right. So that means you have to do long-term planning. Most people don't do long-term planning. That's why second things come first. But if you do long-term planning and you keep your calendar clear so that family comes first and that you mean it. We get together once a week for a family meeting and no one misses. If they miss, they have to get permission of the group and give the justification. No phone call, no homework, no friends. Nothing is admitted into that special family time. And little by little, over time, children growing up saying, family is where it's at.
And callers, you hear Dr. Covey talking about a calendaring. I don't know if you know it, but in the malls, when you see the Franklin Covey store, this is the Covey side of it. So congratulations on that merger as well, Dr. Covey.
Right. That's kind of a practical way of making it happen. I also think it's important that you do, the shortest unit of planning should be a week, not a day. Now, I admit you have to make adaptations on a daily basis because of things that can come up. But if you do it on a week basis, you can write down what are the key roles of your life and the goals you want to accomplish. For instance, my number one role is my relationship to God. My number two role is my relationship to my wife and my children. My number three role then gets into my service to others. My number 4 role is work. Number 5 role is involving, say, friends. See, empathy, and then you think, okay, now this week, how